webinar pop up. Okay, there we are. So we're streaming on YouTube live. All right, let's go ahead. We'll call the meeting to order, and please take the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bear.
Here.
Representative Burkhart. Representative Duncan.
Here.
Representative Iyer.
Here.
Representative Gray.
Here.
Representative Heiner.
Here.
Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Western.
Here.
Chairman Greer.
Here. All right, well, good morning, committee members. So the way it is, February 1st, this is our standing committee meeting for House Minerals. Today we're going to take up 3 bills which were noticed on Friday, and we'll take them in this order. It'll be Senate File 42, out-of-state state charter conversions, Senate File 41, tax lien enforcement amendments, and Senate File 43, Wyoming Energy Authority amendments. I had noticed Senate File 61, which was authorization. It was a tax amortization bill. However, it was not introduced and assigned to us on Friday, so we will not be able to take that up today, even if we did have time. So we'll start with those bills. They are bills that were worked through the interim, relatively easy bills. All of them went through the Senate without amendments and without any no votes. So hopefully we can do our work quickly and efficiently and take another set of eyes on them. Quick reminder to the committee and to anyone, I think we got 5 or 6 attendees so far, is just go ahead and make sure that we work through the chair, ask our questions through the chairs, committee members, make sure we address the title of the people that we're speaking with, be formal in the respect that this committee gives to the people of Wyoming. So with that, why don't we go ahead and jump in? I would let in Albert Forkner, Commissioner Forkner, and anyone else who might be with his organization, and we'll take up Senate File 42.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Commissioner. Did you want to give us a quick walk through this bill for us?
Mr. Chairman, I will. And this will just be quick all around. And for the new members, Mr. Chair, the chairman will understand that this is not normal for banking to have this short of a bill. So this is a rare little nugget that we're considered, excuse me, a gift to the legislature. No, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for those in the interim will know that this bill, it came through the select committee, blockchain, fintech select committee, and then to minerals. The history of it is briefly, you've got state charters and national chartered banks. And of course, here in Wyoming, we charter the state chartered banks and supervise those, and the OCC supervises the national banks. Well, there's a process to convert your charter. Say if you're either a state and want to go national or vice versa. And here we have the ability in Wyoming to convert national banks into a state charter. We've done most of those. There's only a handful remaining that are nationally chartered. We did receive over the last year, I think we're up to 3 or 4 inquiries about, banks that are located in another state moving their charter to Wyoming. And there's a number of factors for that. A couple of them are that the legislative environment is such that they're comfortable with the lawmaking process. Our regulatory process seems to be appropriate as well. We try to make sure that it's right-sized and appropriate for the level and sophistication of the institutions. And so we've got a couple of them that are actually starting the legal work in order to do that. However, we didn't have, up until this point, a mechanism for them to actually convert an out-of-state state charter into a Wyoming state charter bank. And so that's what this proposal does. And it's really, it's pretty simple. And so all the language, starting on page 2, and really 3, 4, and 5, those are all incorporating the out-of-state state charter bank conversion into our existing conversion statutes. Like I said, it just contemplated a national bank and also contemplated a savings and loan bank, or federal savings bank is what they're more appropriately called nowadays. And so that is what this language is on pages 2, 3, and 4. And some of it is conforming language. And that is, Mr. Chairman, that's the bill, is really to incorporate that language to get the ability to do that. And the hopes is by not long after, if this bill does pass and become effective, that we'll have a couple new institutions domiciled here in Wyoming.
Okay, well, thank you, Commissioner. Representative Heiner, I'm going to ask you to floor manage this bill. So if you've got, I should have given you a heads up on that to begin with. I'm going to ask one quick question and I'll turn it over to the committees. But Commissioner, could you just briefly, the term out-of-state state bank is a defined term in the code, but could you tell us why we use that very awkward term?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, absolutely. Yeah, so if the out-of-state state bank is a term previous or already defined in as the reference here is 13.2.802, and it's very specific to the type of charter. So that means this bank is established and chartered in another state, and it's we've got to make sure and use that definition here that allows that movement of that state charter. So what they'll also do, to add on to the question, is that why would they want to do it? Again, it's to move into a jurisdiction and be subject to another state's laws, in this case, obviously Wyoming's. And so that's what we're being very specific about identifying here.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
That makes for a pleasant day for everybody, Representative Burkhardt. Anyway, no, thank you, Commissioner. Representative Heiner, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question: what's the advantage for the state of Wyoming for a bank to be an in-state charter versus an out-of-state charter or a national bank? What I looked at the fiscal note and it's pretty empty. Is there any benefit to the citizens of Wyoming to have these local charters in the state?
Thank
you,
Mr. Yep. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, absolutely. Of course, I'm biased to the Wyoming State Charter, but beyond that, so right now in the banking world and really post kind of Dodd-Frank, post financial crisis of 08, 09, 10, banks are now able to just establish a branch de novo, in essence, just stand it up without any prior existence now. And that wasn't always the case. So that's why you'll see branches, especially usually larger national banks popping up in different communities. We've got one of the largest banks here in Cheyenne is getting ready to open a branch. They've never had a presence before. But you've got a home state versus host state. And so if it's just a branch, you're just the host state. And there's not as much supervision, very little. Some of the consumer credit stuff, and but even that they can export. That's can be complex as well. But here they want to be under Wyoming's jurisdiction. They are paying supervisory fees to the state of Wyoming. We are, and they're subject to Wyoming laws. And if they're operating in the states, they've got close proximity to the regulator, and the citizens in their markets actually have a much easier ability to say that there's a complaint or they've got some concern to contact our office as to trying to navigate through the OCC or another state, how they get some resolution to their question. So those are some advantages. The fiscal note, we left that showing that there is no impact because it really depends upon if a bank moves. Their fees are based on the size of the institution. The larger the bank, the larger the fee, because it takes more time and energy to supervise larger institutions. So since we don't know for sure that they're going to actually plant the flag, we just left that blank. But again, it's revenue, and we've got the examination staff, and we've actually got some positions available that if we see a lot of growth, we can get that, and the legislature is appropriated. So that's some of the advantages.
I'll go Representative Ayer, then Representative Western.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know our good chairman doesn't like to do this, but I was wondering, Albert, if there would be any advantage, since you indicated that you have some in the queue already that are interested in making this conversion, if it would be any benefit to make the effective date immediate?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, understood. Yeah, I don't think so because it's, there's a legal process in order to move the corporation from the other state here. And so that'll take some time. And really they've got to, if they don't have a location here, they'll have to find a physical location and be able to actually get all of those things in place. So I think the effective date is July 1, and that should be sufficient for the institutions we've talked to.
Okay, Representative Western.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Fortner, I just have a quick question. When I read through this bill, I'm not seeing any reference to United States Code or any of that kind of stuff. Is there any processes or regulations through the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency for any of these state banks that are converting charters? Is there any kind of process that they have to go through at the federal level, or do they kind of have a hands-off approach?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, so for the state charter banks, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency wouldn't have any jurisdiction. That would be the home state. Now there is a federal regulator, provincial federal regulator in a state charter. It's either the FDIC or the Federal Reserve, and that really depends if you want to be a member or a non-member. So they have their own application process depending upon if they're a Fed member or if they have a holding company. They'll file through them. We do this in conjunction with those agencies, but we don't need to reference those statutes in order to accomplish this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you bet. Any further questions, committee? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody else of the attendees, if you'd raise your hand as an attendee who wishes to testify? I'm recognizing most of the names. I don't see any of them being associated with this bill. Okay, I'm going to close public testimony. What's the committee's pleasure?
Move the bill.
Been moved by Representative Duncan, seconded by Representative Western. Any discussion on the bill? Question being called. We'll take a roll call vote. So we are voting on Senate File 42. Is that right? Yeah, Senate File 42. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, it's the roll call vote on Senate File 42. Representative Bear.
Aye.
Representative Burkhart.
Aye.
Representative Duncan.
Aye.
Representative Ayer.
Aye.
Representative Gray.
Aye.
Representative Heiner.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
Aye.
Representative Western.
Aye.
Chairman Greer.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the vote was 9-0.
Okay, thank you. Representative Heiner, I assume what this will get reported back into the House chambers this morning around 10 o'clock and probably be this afternoon. I wouldn't be surprised for committee of the whole. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity.
Oh, you're going to get plenty, trust me. Yeah. Okay, so the next item up for our discussion is Senate File 41. I see some names on the attendee list. If you'd raise your hand, I might go ahead and bring those folks in right now. So we have, Mr. Ryman, so Mr. Novotny, going to testify on this. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Now, are they coming in?
Mr. Chairman, I let Mr. Ryman and Mr. Novotny in the room.
Okay. Mr. Novotny, did you want to testify on this bill, I assumed?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, but I would actually defer to Jeremiah first if we could.
Okay. So Jeremiah, or Mr. Ryman, excuse me, did you want to just give us the fly through, or do you want me to go ahead and do it and then wait for your comments? It doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to do the run through if you'd like.
Okay, if you would, that'd be great.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of Wyoming's County Commissioners. I think this is a rather straightforward and simple bill, really only dealing with two provisions that we're trying to clean up from the work that was done on tax lien enforcement last session. The first provision starts on page 3, and it's a deletion, of course, and this is a duplicate provision on page 4 as well. What we have here is if you think about mineral ad valorem tax collection, that in our current world, although that is changing, that tax is collected 18 months after production. And this provision allows for a company to come in and seek a certification from the county clerk or the treasurer that the tax on that for that taxpayer is current. The problem being that because of that lag, there's a possibility that a certification could be given and be construed to suggest that all taxes that might be owed in the future for that company are also paid. And that's something that we don't want to have and don't want to have that inadvertent certification provided to a company that's either selling or one that is looking to buy certain assets. So the simple solution is to delete that language. Certifications still can be provided. This language just wouldn't apply and wouldn't confuse things. Mr. Chairman, the second provision that we're dealing with is on page 4, lines 16 and 17. And what this deals with is the foreclosure process. Unfortunately, the reference that is in that deleted language only points to one type of a foreclosure process, which is a tax sale. What we want to do here is ensure that county treasurers have the full of their ability under foreclosure provisions and not be constrained to just one type of foreclosure. So, Mr. Chairman, those are really the two provisions that are contained in this bill. As you know from the interim, we are still interested in sort of shoring up the county lien priority, but we do not come with an amendment to this conversation today, but would ask for your favorable consideration and advancement of this bill.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Riemann. And so folks, I've mispronounced Jeremiah's name for 10 years. And I apologize. It's the way I read it, sorry. And a little bit of this fix, past President Perkins and I, especially on the tax lien component, we're trying to find a simple, easy read forward and basically got it wrong. So this fix to pull that line out on page, on the last page of the bill is cleaning up something that Senator Perkins and I did. So I'm good with that. Not a problem. Committee members, any question? And Representative Bear is going to manage this bill. So any questions for Mr. Riemann? Okay, pretty straightforward. Mr. Novotny? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my question is, now make sure I pronounce it right. Was it Ryman? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, it is Riemann. It's one of those German names where you drop that first vowel.
Okay, sorry about that. So my question is, you mentioned that certification can still be provided. So I just wanted to clear that up in my mind before I present the bill. The certification, based on the eliminated language, would not be able to be used to close the transaction. Is that correct? It would still require that this would that these payments would be have to be escrowed. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bear, what I was trying to suggest is that a company could still come forward for a certification that taxes were current. What we want to avoid here, in which this language kind of sets up, is a situation where that certification might suggest that all taxes that the company is liable for are paid. Really, that's a transactional issue that the two companies need to deal with, and we don't want counties to inadvertently be suggesting that there aren't future taxes owed.
Did I get your question, Representative Bear?
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Reman, thank you. Yeah, that answered it.
Okay.
It basically, the way I'm understanding it, then that is just so that the selling company can still have a certification that they're current and has nothing to do with the transaction.
Yep. Okay. Representative Western.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reman, I assume also that the E&P companies and PAW, all those folks are on board with this as well.
Mr. Reman, if you want to speak for PAW, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I don't tend to speak for them, but they did participate in the evaluation of this language during the interim and voiced no concern with this particular part of the bill.
I will say that this bill looks exactly as it came out of the interim committee with no changes in the Senate, and this was an agreeable form to all interested parties, which included industry at that time. Okay, Commissioner Novotny, do you have any comments?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Again, I would just encourage the swift passage of this bill. This is cleanup language that is critical for counties as we work to perfect liens when we run into situations where mineral companies fail to pay their ad valorem. Representative Craigo was intricately involved in the drafting of this bill and the decision to strike this language. So certainly if you have questions after we get out of this hearing, I would encourage you to visit with him on the floor. But this is broadly supported by the counties and is needed. You would not want to ask your treasurer to try to issue this certification just because of unintended consequences that maybe there truly were taxes that were owed, but because of the 18-month lag time in reporting on when that delinquency would happen. So this is just really a sound bill, and we'd appreciate you moving it forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the comments. Committee, any questions for Commissioner Novotny? Okay, all right. Good. Quick bill. I don't see anybody else wishing. Mr. Obermuller, did you you wish to comment? I see him in the attendee list. If you can hear me and wish to comment, raise your hand. If not, I'm going to close public testimony. Okay, he hasn't raised his hand, so I'm going to go ahead and close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure?
I move that we move the bill.
Okay, been moved by Representative Bear, seconded by Western. Okay, any further discussion on the bill, committee? Okay, seeing none. Question being called. Roll call vote on Senate File 41.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bear.
Aye.
Representative Burkhart.
Aye.
Representative Duncan.
Aye.
Representative Ayer.
Aye.
Representative Gray.
Aye.
Representative Heiner.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
Aye.
Representative Western.
Aye.
Chairman Greer.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the vote was 9-0.
Okay, thank you. Again, Representative Bear will have you floor manage that. I'm again guessing maybe this afternoon. So, okay, so the next bill for our consideration is the Wyoming Energy Authority bill. And still getting used to doing all this electronically. So it's Senate File 43. Appears that we have quite a few people want to testify. If you'll raise your hand as an attendee, and then we'll go ahead and just bring you on into the meeting as a panelist. So, and Jonathan, I assume you'll let them in. Give us just a second. Okay, it should be, okay. Yeah, that's quite a lag, quite frankly, from they just disappear to show up. So I think, okay. I think we had one more. I think I saw Randall Luthi.
Mr. Chairman, Randall Luthy's in the room, just doesn't have the camera on.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, we'll proceed. Representative Burkhart, you want to give us a flyover on this bill, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This bill came out of the interim and is some amendments to the Energy Authority statutes. And the main reason was to include support for specific minerals industries. And if you go over to page 2 on the bill, they're listed there, mainly critical materials, and it's defined. And right now, critical materials have become very critical in the United States. For example, cobalt is used in lithium-ion batteries, and the two sources are in what we would consider unstable countries. And there may be some amount of cobalt in Wyoming. The other was rare earth minerals, and they're in great demand. Each one of these wind turbines you see in the air has about 750 pounds of rare earths in them. And Wyoming may be in the future one of the world's top suppliers of those materials and other minerals. And part of this was to expand a little bit the Energy Authority's ability to assist in these industries and to support the efforts a little, say, different than just pure energy production, but really vital to the future of Wyoming's economy, I think. And it goes along with the authority's purpose, which is to diversify and expand Wyoming's economy, seek federal grants, participate in any federal programs, help and assist these companies with permitting, citing, other regulatory requirements. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you go to page 3, it indicates that in supporting the efforts to maintain and expand all of those industries, including our drone industry and other minerals, and there is some current work being done on a number of other minerals, and that in Wyoming would help them with for example, the extraction of rare earths from coal and coal partings, which just last year, Wyoming received a sizable grant from the federal government to work on those. And it gives the Energy Authority the ability to get involved in those projects and assist where they can. And I think that's it in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Sorry, I just, Representative Burkhart, could you touch on the expanded language with respect to the revenue bonds? I don't think you quite touched on that in the history you talked before.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It allows the Energy Authority to provide bonding where it may be requested for those other industries. Right now, it can provide bonding, say, for a pipeline or something like that. And it allows bonding for facilities, infrastructure, and other transportation and distribution projects related to these. Would assist with developing access, roads, that sort of thing. And again, create an infrastructure for these other industries using other materials other than, say, oil and gas and coal and uranium.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Representative. And then also for the committee, Representative Burkhart and I have been visiting about this, and I think what we want to do in this interim is explore this bonding component, which had existed with the Pipeline Authority and the Transmission Authority, and has only been used once. And so I think what we want to do is get this committee educated on that this summer and look at how do we make that a more effective tool. The way it is right now, it's not particularly effective, but it's been in place for I don't know how many years, for decades. Just time to take a good look at it again. Just sort of a heads up for this committee and those folks that are interested. So, okay, committee, does anyone have any questions of Representative Burkhart. If not, we'll go to public testimony. Okay, looks like you've, yeah, Representative Heiner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little bit more definition or granularity on this bonding. As we do a revenue bond, is there any financial benefit to the state of Wyoming to back those bonds? And is there any risk to the state of Wyoming to back bonds like that? Some of these new construction can be several $100 million, and I want to make sure that that doesn't put the state of Wyoming at risk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Heiner, that's one of the things that the chairman just mentioned was the committee will go over during this year, during the coming interim. The bill is not addressing directly bonding. That does need to be addressed. The bill is to expand to include other industries. But the bonding, the Energy Authority is held at arm's length from the state through the statutes, so that if the bonds are issued, it's done by the Energy Authority. And I've researched the bonds over the interim, including numerous discussions with financial experts and institutions, and we need to take a long, hard look at the bond, but that's not what this bill does. This bill is really to allow the Energy Authority to assist in other areas, especially rare earth materials, trona, those sorts of things, and they can provide help with permitting. But I think bonding needs to have a long look at it, but it's outside the scope of this amendment. I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
Representative Heiner?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And committee, like I say, this bonding authority has been in place for a long time. It's been used once. Where it was most helpful with the pipeline authority was in negotiating, having this ability. And what they found is that it helped move projects forward, but then as the project's feasibility developed, quite frankly, private industry came in and utilized it. But we will take a much deeper dive on that to see what might be available this summer if tweaks are necessary, or maybe it works just the way it is. So, okay. Why don't we go ahead and start with the governor's office, and Mr. Luthi, do you have any comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to thank you and your committee. This is another step in what has been a multi-year process as the WIA and the WPA was merged together. We think we're making great strides on that. This is just another step in it. I appreciate all your efforts, and the governor is very supportive of the bill itself.
Okay, well, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Luthi? All right, no, appreciate you joining us. Let me go to Mr. Detaille next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would, if it would please the committee, I'd rather defer to Mrs. Levin, representing the Trona industry, who has really taken the lead on this from the industry side, to go first.
So Mr. Detaille, it wouldn't please the committee. I want to hear from you, my friend.
You certainly will. And I would just say, if that's your choice, Mr. Chairman, I will say that the Mining Association, and first of all, Mr. Chairman, Travis Detaille with the Wyoming Mining Association, and for the benefit of the new committee members, the Mining Association represents the state's coal companies, the Trona companies, bentonite, uranium. We do have a couple of rare earth companies, and are on the cusp of getting a new gold company that's exploring for gold in Laramie County. And thank you to Representative Burkhart for his work on this. We think this is a good bill. You know, as we look at the general environment that we're in right now, especially with the coal industry going forward, and the continued contraction of our customer base, you know, we're not going to be able to rely on coal as much as we have in the past going forward. And we think that as long as the state is going to be reliant on natural resources for revenue and for jobs, we need to start looking at some of these other minerals and getting some of these other projects up and running, you know, to provide those jobs and provide a little revenue to backfill for that. So we're very supportive of the bill, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I would just ask the question as this came up within the last couple of weeks. As I mentioned, we do have a company that is very bullish on a possible gold mine in Laramie County. And if the language is broad enough to encompass gold under rare earth elements, and I'm not wanting to monkey up the bill because it's a good bill, we want to see it move forward, but I would just throw that out to the committee for consideration. But overall, Mr. Chairman, very supportive of the bill, and we would ask for the committee's favorable consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Deti, and I would appreciate the broader comments on this. So we do. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Deti? Okay. All right. Ms. Levan, sorry. Oh, sorry. This may back up. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Deti, so do you think it doesn't include gold? Because I think it does.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, Representative Gray, I don't know. In the context when we've been discussing the bill over the interim, it has been in the context of rare earths, and it very well may. I would just, if it doesn't, maybe that's something to address. But if the committee feels it does, I'm fine. And again, don't want to monkey with things too much.
Yep. Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say that in drafting the bill, it does include gold. It would include, for example, lithium. There's a large lithium deposit north of Rock Springs, and it's drafted broad enough. The reason rare earths, critical materials, and in one spot, trona are called out specifically, are those are the things of immediate interest to Wyoming. We've had gold mines in Wyoming before, and I think they would be covered under this, along with some other materials. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
I'm picking up. I'm slow with my mouse. Sorry. Ms. Levan, please.
Mr. Chairman, I did see Representative Heiner had his hand up. So if he has a question, I'll pause for a second.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Heiner, you had a question for Mr. Deti?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry that hand it kind of blends into my sky up there. Sorry about that. As we were talking about different elements and rare earth, what about diamonds? Is that included in this legislation? Because we have found some sprinkling of diamonds in Southwest Wyoming, and just wondered if that does eventually come to fruition, if that would be included in this legislation.
Mr. Deti?
Mr. Chairman, that goes back to my original question: is the language broad enough to include that? I would defer to Representative Burkhart.
Yep, Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would go to page 2 under definitions, Romanet 5, the new language of mineral. And it says, so it would read any substance, mineral, element, or compound, etc. That would include diamonds. And I'd like to see diamonds extracted also. I know where there are a couple kimberlite chimneys in the Laramie range, and diamonds come from kimberlite chimneys. So.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Any further questions, committee? Okay, Ms. Levan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. My name is Jody Levan. I'm here this morning on behalf of the Trona industry. I want to thank the interim committee, the joint committee, for addressing this topic. This was an issue that the Trona industry brought forward over the interim and asked for the committee's consideration. The Trona industry has significant expansion plans, either already planned or announced throughout many of the companies. And when we were looking at the opportunities to work with the state, a question arose when the state, when the legislature merged the Pipeline Authority and the Infrastructure Authority. To us, it looked like perhaps an unforeseen consequence of that was non-energy minerals no longer had an entity to work with in the state on things like permitting, as the chairman indicated. So Trona is, of course, mining, and soda ash is chemical manufacturing. Neither of those are energy, so the companies really felt like it might be a stretch to be able to utilize the Energy Authority for any of their expansion projects. So we brought this issue forward and asked if there would be a willingness to expand the definitions to allow these non-energy minerals to participate in the Energy Authority. A big thank you to Representative Burkhart, Representative Duncan, Representative Ayer, and on the Senate side, Senator Rothfuss, who really spent significant hours looking at this topic, working with the Energy Authority. The Trona industry did participate with the Energy Authority and the committee members in developing these definitions to try to make sure that, that they got it right. So in essence, Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank the committee for its good work. We do appreciate the expanded definitions. It does give some comfort to the industry that I know they won't be on potential uncharted waters in working with the Energy Authority. Should anyone ever raise a question about why the Energy Authority is lending its assistance to a non-energy sector.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Representative Heiner has a question. A little better background. I could see the hand that time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Levin may have answered this question, but the Trona industry has been in about since 1965 or thereabouts, and they have performed and done very well for the state. I appreciate their efforts and the benefit it's brought to the economy, especially here locally. But this has all transpired without being involved in the Energy Commission. So what would change after this, if this bill is approved? What would change and how would it benefit you as an industry as you go about going forward?
Yep, Ms. Levin.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Heiner, the industry, you are correct. The industry has succeeded quite well without the assistance of the state. What is different moving forward is the nature of these expansion projects. There hasn't been significant investment in the Trona patch, that's what the companies like to call it, for many years, but that is on the cusp of changing. So you've got some companies that are looking to develop new mines. You've got some companies that really look at the future of the industry as being more of a surface play than an underground play. And that's a technological change where they really feel like there could be a benefit in working with the state. There will be significant infrastructure needs out in the Trona patch. There will be roads, there could be pipelines for water issues. And they looked at this as, will they ever need the assistance of the state? Perhaps not, but in moving these projects forward, they wanted to be prepared and felt like this was an appropriate ask to expand the Energy Authority into areas where, this is assistance that's been available to the other energy sectors for decades. And so really it was just a request to say, if needed, can we utilize these assets and resources of the state, technical expertise in particular.
Yep, Representative Heiner, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with that being said, Ms. Levin, do you anticipate the Trona patch utilizing the bonding authority such that we need to focus on that in the interim this summer? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Representative Heiner, the Trona industry welcomes the interim topic on this exact issue. They've looked at the bonding authority. They're not certain whether it would be anything that the companies would ever be able to utilize. So we do feel like it's an appropriate topic for the committee to address. As the chairman indicated, it rarely gets used, but it does get used as leverage in terms of having that available to industry can often open up new avenues that perhaps you weren't otherwise privy to, and that is a topic that perhaps the industry will need to utilize. These are billions of dollars of investment that is coming to Southwest Wyoming, and it's going to take a period of years. This isn't a 1-year project or a 2-year project. I mean, this is a 10-year horizon or more to get some of these permitted, especially these new greenfield facilities. It's going to take a substantial amount of time. What we do know is traditional conventional financing has become far more difficult to obtain due to the pandemic. The Trona industry was hit particularly hard due to closures in other states, and that has caused some of their normal financing to pull back a little bit because the production numbers really just fell through the bottom. They were down 41% in June from December of 2019. So it's been a significant drop, and that has caused some investors to take a little bit of pause. The industry is rallying back quite strong, actually, and that's part of the reason why we strongly support this bill, is it puts the industry in a good position to be able to take advantage when they're ready.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Representative Hunter, or do you and Ms. Levin want to talk offline?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for all the questions, but I have a great audience right here that I can ask questions from, and I may be out of order with this next question because it really extends what we're talking about into a different area. But we have talked amongst ourselves about the difficulty of transporting our minerals out of state, specifically to the West. Has the Trona industry had any difficulty moving and exporting this Trona through Western states to market?
So here's what I'm going to do. Representative Hunter, Ms. Levin would love to talk to you about Trona for hours. I can guarantee you. I'd like to wrap up our meeting because I've got to go check in on a sugar factory. So, and I don't mean to cut that short, but these are great discussions. I just, we got to respect all the other members' time here. So if you don't mind, I know Ms. Levin will call you as soon as we get done with this meeting. So, okay. Any further questions for Ms. Levin? Representative Western.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to make sure I read this correctly, it's saying that the authority can issue bonds for these types of projects. And I'm not saying that there might not be a need for a discussion about something like that, which is, I'm certainly open to that, but I feel, it makes me feel uncomfortable having the authority raise money for these projects that are for the benefit of the Trona industry. It might make me feel a little bit better if we put language that said subject to final approval of the authority or something like that, because it kind of makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Okay. You wanted to address that, Representative Burkhardt?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can address that. If you look at that section of this bill, it's only an extremely small portion of the entire section in the statutes on bonding that the Energy Authority can do. The bonding section is almost as long as the entire rest of the Energy Authority's purpose, mission, directives, and all of that in statute. And it's a very detailed section of statute, provides protection for the state, provides money for the state. And that's why the chairman and I have talked that that's an issue that needs to be addressed during the interim. I've had companies approach me and say, why is the rate so low? And I've also had companies approach me saying, why is the rate so high? So obviously there's something in there that needs some work and some analysis. And bonding is not a quick and easy fix for anything. And it's something I think all of us need to be educated on. And I believe that was the chairman's goal during the interim, was to get that education for all of us, and then look at the bonding portion of the statutes. And there are other places in statute where there's bonding also, so not just the Energy Authority. But I think that's kind of out, to me, out of the realm of this bill at this time, but we do need to look at it.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Luthi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I hesitate to say this is kind of a trust me issue, but it sort of is a trust me issue. The bonding does need to be looked at during the interim. And I can quite fairly and I think accurately predict that the WEA is not going to be issuing bonds in between now and when the joint committees or the committees have an opportunity to look at this. It is a long, it's complicated discussion. Glad to have it. The reason why this bill goes as far as it does is just to provide everyone with the equal basis for that discussion of bonding. Again, I'm a little hesitant about saying that, but I would encourage the committee to move forward, and that when the time comes, the joint committee to consider that as an interim topic.
Thank you. Committee, any further questions, Ms. Levan? Okay, seeing that, I'll move on to, is it Rainey Lenz? Am I saying that correct? Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rainey Lenz. I manage the energy and minerals team for the Wyoming State Geological Survey. And I just wanted to, let you know that I'm here if you have any questions on minerals, critical minerals, anything like that throughout the state. We study them as part of our, state mandate. It's a statutory requirement. So we've been certainly looking at this throughout the state. So I just wanted to be here if you have questions.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lenz, have you completed the analysis at the Bridger Mine on their coal seams for some of these materials? Have you completed that yet?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Burkhart, we are not working on the Bridger Mine. We are working on in the Kemmerer coal field, and also the SER is working in the Kemmerer mine area as well, looking at the critical minerals associated with coals in that area. I'm not sure if SER is working on the Bridger Mine at all, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Ms. Lenz, as you can see, the committee is very inquisitive and very excited about this. Right now, as we're in session, just trying to roll through these bills that we have, maybe worthwhile if the committee wants is have you come and spend some time with us this interim and kick around just some of the interesting things going on and get some questions asked and just increase everybody's awareness of all the minerals in Wyoming. So we appreciate your testimony. Okay. All right. Anybody else? I don't see any other people. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. What's the committee's pleasure?
Move the bill.
Second.
Okay. Bill was moved and seconded. All right. Go ahead, Representative Wester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I'm for the sake of time and the committee's interest, I won't make a squawk about it now, but it makes me nervous using public dollars and public bonding process for this kind of stuff. And again, I'll vote aye on the bill and not make a scene about it, but I think that there needs to be a pretty robust discussion about making sure we have a public entity such as the Pipeline Authority and the Energy Authority have its ability to aid industry. It makes me nervous, and I would just certainly encourage that we put that as an interim topic. So thank you.
Okay, good comments, Representative Western. I'm getting some echo or feedback somewhere here.
Pardon me.
Okay, there we go. Representative Bear's not too far away. Representative Western, we'll go through that with you. The authority is a unique vehicle. Those revenue bonds are different than what you're thinking of. So we'll walk through those things and get you comfortable with that underlying concern. So we're more than happy to do that and make that commitment to you. So any other questions on the bill? Does the committee see the need to walk through the bill, or should we go ahead ready for a vote? Okay, I'm seeing that. Yep, question being called. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on Senate File 43.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Bear.
Aye.
Representative Burkhart.
Aye.
Representative Duncan.
Aye.
Representative Air.
Aye.
Representative Gray.
Aye.
Representative Heiner.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
Aye.
Representative Western.
Aye.
Chairman Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 9-0.
Okay, well, committee, that's all that we have assigned to us for today. I'll let you know as soon as I can whether we'll have a meeting. So we normally go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 o'clock. I'll let you know if we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday, if we've got bills to work or not. We do have the tax and bills to get ready in, so we may hear that. Depending upon what time we gavel in, that's when I'll set our meeting off at that particular time. So just keep posted. Good work, and then good questions. And again, if you want to go in greater depth, some of those people that were here testifying on that last issue, great resources. They'll talk your ears off, tell you everything you want to know. They'll be more than happy to take your call and visit with you. So with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I appreciate the good work, committee. Thank you. And Jonathan, I'll go ahead and stay online.